damn, Lost and Found is such a good event because it's just spectacular.
Welcome to Dirt Magic, a podcast chronicling the Sierra Beach Trail Stewardship's mission of building sustainable recreation-based communities through stewardship, job creation, and world-class events, providing quality outdoor experiences through trail construction and maintenance in the Lost Sierra. I'm your host, Martin Scheel. Today's guest grew up riding his neighbor's hand-me-downs. Now granted, these hand-me-downs were Yetis, so there are some points in the plus category for hand-me-downs. Those early steeds helped propel him to a mountain bike high school state championship. But his prowess on a bike would not be satisfied, so he decided to add a Cyclocross National Championship to his young resume. In 2016, a rad bicycle company, Cruz Bicycles, made a wise decision and invited him to the family. From that day forward, he has conquered races across the globe, but still found time to get lost and found, gravel style. He even had a side gig working for a hit squad. In today's world, he's no stranger to standing on top of the podium in multiple disciplines, but still remains a down-to-earth, cool guy that will gladly kick back with us regular folk and enjoy an ice-cold beverage. Please welcome to the show, the People's Champ, a.k.a. mctubbin, a.k.a. Tobin Ortenblad. Well, Tobin, welcome to Dirt Magic.
All right, we finally penciled in some time to do this. Mostly my fault.
Oh, hey, you're one busy guy, and I know that travel keeps you motoring around too, and makes it a little bit harder to pin you down. But from Sea Otter, you decided that you'd go ahead and take a little bit more punishment and head on up north to Virginia City to ride some really smooth trails in the Grand Prix on your moto.
Yeah, that was straight from Sea Otter was one weekend, and then Virginia City Grand Prix was another moto race the weekend after that, which was that was the biggest, gnarliest moto I've done. It's like 4 hours, 90 plus miles. That was sweet. I mean, I had a blast. I was hoping to get one more lap in. You know, it's a 4 hour race, but it's a 4 hour race and you do as many laps as you can within those 4 hours. And I missed the cutoff by about 3 minutes. So I did 4 laps and I was hoping to do 5. Just my ego wanted 5, but man, I was a bit of a liability to myself on that 4th lap, like just starting to ride poorly, like making as good decisions as I can, but you just get tired, you know?
Yeah, I was a liability on my first lap that I ever tried Virginia City. And of course, that's been almost 30 years ago. And when I was coaxed into doing the full course too. And boy, what a difference. There's a couple of those sections that are just, man, they are gnarly and I was not ready for it. And yeah, I was probably a liability to everybody around me as well. So thank goodness I don't go up to that one anymore.
That's the best part.
Well, thanks again for being on the show. I appreciate having you. And, for those that don't know, Mr. Tobin Ortenblad, if we go back more than 2 decades, where did your story begin? And then how did it end up on 2 wheels?
I always rode bikes. It was always kind of my favorite thing to do. My dad rode, but he didn't necessarily get me into racing. The short story is my neighbor raced for Yeti, and he was a professional bike racer, and all the kids in the neighborhood just kind of chased him around, and we all did dirt jumps and kind of gravity focused stuff. But in middle school, I got into racing because I could get out of PE. I got out of gym class, so I got to leave school early every other day and ride with the high school mountain bike team, even though I was in middle school, and that was the NICA team. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I was super competitive and wanted to do well, wanted to win races, wanted to win practice, all the things, some little cocky kid would want. And then, I found my way onto California Giant Berry Farms. Specialized was the team at the time. People called it Cal Giant, which was a cyclocross and road team. But raced for them for, 5-ish years or so through the end of junior and U23, and then when I was done with U23 in 2016, I believe. Yeah, I went to maybe 2015 it was. Went to Santa Cruz Bikes, and this is my 10th year on Santa Cruz. So maybe that means it was 2016. So I've been on Santa Cruz ever since, kind of racing everything and anything. And I really like racing, period. I don't necessarily, it doesn't have to be one discipline or the other. Like I like racing crits, road races, gravel, cross country, enduro. I've never done a downhill race, but I've basically done everything else.
Well, when you say that you've never done a downhill race, I mean, I would think that part 2 of the Donnyville Classic All Mountain World Championships may qualify for a pretty gnarly downhill.
That's true. I should say I've never raced a downhill bike. I've never ridden a downhill bike. I've only raced, yeah. So yeah, Downeyville would obviously be a timed run, but it's so long, it's like its own unique thing.
Yeah, I still remember, the early years and just going up to Donnyville, bombing the downhill, but I've never had a downhill bike. It was in the early days, it was, like a Park Pre hardtail Pro Comp, aluminum frame and, a Rock Shock Judy with elastomers in it. And then of course, here comes some big Santa Cruz V10 that probably weighed close to 60 pounds back then. And it would just go by me like it had throttle. Right up until that climb before Third Divide. and then there's a whole lot of walking for those guys.
Yeah. Those you can't even pedal, especially back then. I mean, those bikes were heavy. And yeah, Downeyville is special.
So what was your first bike that you ever rode?
I mean, the first bike I can remember was a 20-inch mountain bike. It was a Marin. I think it was a Marin. I was told it was a Marin. It didn't have any stickers or logos on it. And that was my first bike with gears. So I think that bike had a triple, right? Probably a triple and a 3x8 or 3x9, probably 8. And that was a 20-inch bike. So I had that for however long I had it. And then from there went to a 24-inch bike, which I very much remember getting. I came home from school and my dad had left me notes around, both my parents, but I remember my dad probably went and got the bike, but he put these sticky notes all around the house, and it was like a bit of a scavenger hunt. And then it's, the last one I went out on like the balcony and there was a new bike, and I was just stoked. So that was a 24-inch, like Hot Rock, a Specialized. And I actually broke that frame. I cracked it because we were jumping them. Like, probably weren't really supposed to jump those bikes. So it didn't have a catastrophic failure or anything, but I did put a minor crack in it. And then the local shop got me a new frame or whatever. And then, from there, I guess my next bike was a Specialized P2. It was a dirt jumper. And then after that, I was kind of big enough to get the hand-me-downs for my neighbors. So I was on Yetis from there on, I had a Yeti dirt jumper and a Yeti 4-cross. And then, I don't know what I had in the interim. And then I probably had some sort of cross-country bike after that.
Well, the Yetis, boy, that's even on hand-me-down level, that's a nice way to start racing, being on.
They were so nice.
Yeah.
They were so nice.
Yeah, those were, there's a lot of people that still had to catch up, to a lot of the technology that they even had on those early bikes for sure.
Yeah, it was, I was lucky to get the hand-me-downs from my neighbor. We paid for them too, but it was a win for everybody.
Sure. Well, with starting out with mountain bike racing, from middle school on the high school team, how did you transition to, like, what was next? Did you decide to go road, hit some criteriums? Because gravel was probably, it was just starting to explode, but right before you were probably brought on to Santa Cruz. So yeah, what was next, and what was that transition like?
So yeah, we did gravel we did cross country and whatnot. That was in high school. That was like the NICA league was cross country racing. The high school team I was on was kind of a composite team of kind of kids from all the high schools in the Santa Cruz area. And we would just kind of go do a bit of everything. Like in the winter, there's no cross country. So we did some cross. We all just went and tried that. It was our first time for a lot of us. And then in the summer, there's not necessarily the NICA league either. So we would do as much cross country as we could, like outside of NICA. But then we do local road racing. And at the end of the day, we just have, at the end of the day, we have so much racing close to where I live in Santa Cruz, especially back then. So you could race anything all year round almost. I shouldn't say anything. It was very seasonal, but any time of the year you could go do a bike race. So we just raced what was in season, and that's kind of how I got into doing everything, as we were just on a race team, like the high school race team, you know. And then I mean gravel, right? And that came along in 20, what's the first year of Lost and Found? 2015?
14.
14. So yeah, I mean I was there in 2014, and that's when I was still on Cal Giant. I had no idea what to expect. No one really did, right? We were riding cyclocross bikes, and the only other race I heard of was, the one in Kansas, and it was Dirty Kansas back then. That was 200 miles, which I don't know. It just was kind of this thing. I was like, I didn't really understand why anyone would go do that. I still don't necessarily, to be honest, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Well, I think that it was the kind of the lure of it, because a lot of road races, unless it was a staged race, something similar like the Tour, it was 100 miles. A road race was, you went out, you did a century, unless it was, you weren't quite at that level yet. And I think that was, the adventure racing, was kind of changing too, where it was multiple levels of, instead of basically a triathlon on steroids, but then that turned into some pretty big mountain bike rides, road rides, and gravel rides. And I think Kansas, they just hit it, at the right time, with folks wanting to go out and punish themselves like that, especially with almost no support, in the early years. I mean, unless you pulled into a 7-Eleven or something to get a Gatorade, if you weren't carrying it with you. But
totally. But it was always a bit of a rival race for Lost and Found, because they were on the same weekend for a really long time. And it was kind of one or the other.
And of course, once Lifetime, became involved too, and that's a powerful global marketing conglomerate right there to have to battle against. So,
yeah, it is. I mean, it's corporate bike racing, which I don't know, means it has to be huge and profitable and this and that, which I don't know if that's a good thing necessarily. It's good and bad, but it's allowed a lot of people to make a profession out of it, which is good, but at what expense?
Yeah, there's definitely been discussions over that, especially, probably right before the pandemic, and even post-pandemic too. And we're going to talk about that too, kind of the face of racing and festivals and events. And but prior to you becoming part of the riding for Santa Cruz, what were some of your big wins on any discipline, whether it was mountain, cross, gravel, or road, before you officially became a Santa Cruz rider?
So before I went to the year when I aged out of U23 and Cal Giant, I was national champion for cyclocross. So U23 national champion. That was probably was my biggest win, I'd say. I'd won a handful of Northern California road races. I should say a handful. I won a lot of like local races, but local racing only gets you so much. But yeah, I'd won at that point a lot of U23 cyclocross UCI events, maybe some elite. I'd have to look back. I'd say all my results were at like a UCI level cyclocross. In UCI cyclocross, that's really was my main thing back then. In high school, I won the NICA state champs or whatever. It just in the moment, it was a huge result for me, but it's like in hindsight, it's just like high school state champs. But I put it on my resume to try to move up the ladder.
Yeah, I was going to say though, that's still a good thing. I mean, your resume has to start somewhere, and for the teams and mentors and sponsors to start putting eyeballs on you. I mean, it always helps, to climb the staircase and they don't see any big gaps in there.
Totally. And I guess I won a big NRC crit.
So how did Santa Cruz happen?
Santa Cruz happened when Cal Giant Specialized was the team I was on, and Santa Cruz had just made a Stigmata again. That's their current gravel bike, but it was a cyclocross bike. So that bike came out, and Santa Cruz had an aluminum Generation 1 Stigmata way back in the day with, cantilever brakes. I don't really remember when. But in 2015, they released a new carbon Stigmata with disc brakes, because around that time, for the deep dive nerds out there, 2014, 2015 was the first year that disc brakes were allowed in UCI cyclocross, because there was a while they were banned. You just couldn't have disc brakes. Um, so in 2015, Santa Cruz made that Stigmata, and they had contacted me about racing it. So I went and met with them, and I had lofty goals, and they weren't quite ready to like jump all in on like a big team program. But so I didn't go to Santa Cruz then. But in 2016, I had aged out of the U23 race program I was on, and that's when I went to Santa Cruz to race. I raced cyclocross for Santa Cruz for a number of years primarily, and then the pandemic really killed cyclocross. I'd say, I shouldn't say it killed it, but it's never been the same since.
Yeah, it was definitely, and it's such a spectator event, and
Yeah.
people can really be involved. I mean, sometimes not in the greatest of ways, but still involved, and exciting to watch. And the media loved it. I mean, it was just such a cool, different thing, and watching people run with their bike and jump over logs and get muddy, and depending on which race you're at, having beer thrown across the course or at a rider, and um, from some of the more fun, cyclocross races. But yeah, I think that the pandemic just it took the wind out of the sails, and I don't think it ever got back to probably what it would have been in 21 for sure, or even 20.
Yeah, totally. And there was a changing of the guard too. Like some of the really big names had kind of retired and whatnot. But I still hope, and I hope that cross one day will be big again. I don't know if it will be, but it's just so much better than gravel in every way, man. I will preach it and argue it and fight it till the end of my until the end of my time.
Well, then what we'll have to do then is take your expertise to that. Maybe that's something down the road we can fold into our Mountains to Meadows Enduro Fest, because we've got the
Yeah,
entire fairgrounds there. We could have some fun with that and some cyclocross, I think.
you know what? I mean, not to get completely off track, but a lot of these gravel races, it's like there's nothing going on before the big race, and I'm always like, there should be a spectator event, like a dirt crit or like a cross race. No gear restrictions, like run what you brung, whatever bike's good, but there should be like a event like that, so people can watch it, get people excited about it. Maybe only the pros do it, or anyone can do it, but it doesn't have to be like 6 to 10 races, just like, male, female bike race, go 2 races,
Yeah.
everyone lines up and just does it. I don't know. It could be cool.
Yeah, I think so. And folks, you heard it first right here on Dirt Magic with Tobin Ortenblad. That there we go. There's the future. We're gonna lock it in. So look to the SBTS set of events coming up here in the near future. You never know.
It would be really good at like Mountains to Meadows. Like it would work great because everyone's camping. I mean, it would work well at Lost and Found too if you had the space to do it, which
Sure,
harder in
absolutely.
town, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. So Team Santa Cruz, was this a paid gig for you, or is it more on a sponsorship level where you got bike and travel covered, or I mean, you were still obviously pretty young then, so was this your
Yeah.
job?
Yeah, I mean it technically was. That was my first paid gig. It wasn't much. It was like 12 grand, which was um it was like a lump sum 12 grand without an expensible budget. So that was like, hey, here's your bikes, here's your money, go have fun. It wasn't like, here's your salary and then expense your plane tickets and your travel. That was it, right?
Make this
which
work.
exactly. So I got really good at, I had a few companies paying me. I think it was Santa Cruz and Bell Helmets that first year. And then the next year, Donkey Label was a clothing company, still is, out of Minneapolis, who I met. And I probably had 3 or 4 companies paying me, but my gross budget was like 30 grand, and I was buying my plane tickets and my mechanics tickets, and we were flying around, and whatever I whatever I saved was kind of what I paid myself. And there was prize money and stuff, but yeah, I was just kind of winging it, but I really learned a lot in those years. I learned how to kind of budget for stuff, how to be really clever with spending money for racing, and how to make money.
Yeah, and you definitely, I mean, it's interesting. I was talking to Pete Stetna on previous episode, and he brought up a good point that, as a pro rider, you've basically become a small business,
You do.
and you have to know the ins and outs of it. And even in those first years, it may be a little more of a financial struggle, but it forces you in that position to understand every aspect of what a pro racer does, needs,
Yeah.
survival. And if you are fortunate enough to move along and have that, financial resources gained from sponsors or salaries, you have a better idea of what you should and shouldn't do as that quote business owner. So I think that's probably a little bit of struggle, probably is a good thing in the beginning.
It is 100%. And I was young. I lived with my parents, so it wasn't like I didn't have any expenses, right? But you had to kind of show that it was going in the right direction. And I was also doing a bit of college then for mechanical engineering, and I was going 1 semester a year. But eventually, I kind of just went all in on racing because I was starting to make enough money where I could kind of like see it happening as like a full-time gig. So yeah, that was the trajectory of it.
And in those days too, were there any mentors? Like, were there folks at Santa Cruz, some other riders that not necessarily take you under their wing? Because I mean, you're already fast, obviously in your own right. But some of those that maybe had just a little bit more race wisdom that you could
Yeah, I
follow.
mean, there was my coach at the time, Chris McGovern, who and the Buttes knows, and was involved super heavily with Lost and Found. So Chris was my coach, and he was really the heavy nudge of like, you can do this, let's do this, I'll help you, yada yada yada. I mean, I probably wouldn't have done any of it without him pushing me to do it, which I'm grateful for. Like, because it's kind of scary. And he was, had the hard talks with my mom, like he should do this, maybe college, maybe he doesn't need to do college right now or whatever. Um,
Oh, I bet that went over well with mom.
yeah, I wasn't really around for that, but I think he was like, I think he really had that talk like with her, like he can do this. And then of course there's local racing mentors. I guess, Justin Robinson would be and has been one forever. Just a solid guy. And then another, I mean, I can't forget, like a lot of people probably know Jordy Cortez, who works at Fox now, but he was, when I was on Cal Giant and whatnot, Jordy was also working for that team before he was the big World Cup mechanic that he currently is. But he also was just very generous when I was just a young junior with helping me build bikes, getting me parts. He was working for Cal Giant and Specialized Factory, so sometimes I'd go to a cross country race with him and the Specialized team, and I would just like sleep on the floor of the hotel or the couch just to go with in a race. So, just kind of like how anyone would do it. I think these stories and whatnot still exist of just being a Grom and going to the races and making it work.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you brought up McGovern too. I mean, his Lost and Found may not exist, without Chris and Chris's input, and and his drive and his early conversations, with Greg, and but he was right. I mean, he saw it, and he saw the writing on the wall. And I know he's always been good with athletes. He currently is now. I love following him on social media with what he's doing with the new team. But yeah, those are definitely some good mentors and great folks to follow, and genuine too, that are definitely proponents and supporters of the industry. racing and just cycling, which is great. They were never felt like they were from a big corporate world of trying to put your child into indentured servitude to sponsorship or anything
Yeah.
like that, like a record label. So
No, totally. Yeah, I mean that's totally it. Just having someone that's been around, someone that gets it, and someone that cares to help the next generation. Really.
sure, sure. So those early years, what did Santa Cruz have a preference of where they potentially wanted to see you on the podium? I mean, between mountain and gravel, or was that completely up to you? How did that work out?
Like, did they care what races I did? Is
Yeah,
that not really. I mean, man, I was like pretty much all in for them during the winter, right, with cross, and then a little bit of gravel, but they didn't really care about gravel at all, right? Because gravel wasn't a thing that was a marketable thing people talked about. It was just kind of this weird oddball thing that we did on cyclocross bikes. You know what I mean?
sure, absolutely.
So yeah, there was like some local cross country stuff here and there, but I mean, no, it was like super kind of vague. Just like, just go have fun and race. Yeah. Now that I think about it, I mean, there wasn't like, and I was back in these days, I was very good at cross. I was a few years, probably one of the best guys in the country. So that was valuable to them at the time. Now, people don't even know what cross is, but, um, yeah, I mean that was kind of my thing for them. Was like I just raced cross, and cross, for people that don't know, I mean the season's like September to January, so it's kind of this like more abbreviated season. And then when you're not doing that, you're kind of resting or doing other stuff. This kind of modern season we have now of go 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 nonstop racing all year round is kind of like new in a lot of senses. Like obviously world tour road racers, they race most of the year, but the first gravel race is in like March and the last one's in like October. So you don't really get an off season. It's just always on. And then there's racing in the winter too. So it's like nowadays you pretty much just race all year long, and that's just how it is. But it didn't really used to be like that.
So, moving along through the years of Santa Cruz, I mean, obviously, you were one of the integral parts of the hit squad with Santa Cruz, but was there a team culture prior to that where there was a few of you that were um that would race together and use some team tactics, or was the hit squad kind of the first one you were involved in?
Yeah, I mean, the hit squad was so Santa Cruz always had a team, being the downhill team, the syndicate, and that's still is their big team. That's their baby. But for endurance, we'll just call that, endurance racing, like anything spandex related, they had like a few, they had a few athletes. They had Alexis raced for Santa Cruz. Obviously I raced for Santa Cruz. Justin Robinson and like Josh Tostado. There's a bunch of people that raced for Santa Cruz, but it never was like a team. It was kind of like, they would call it like the free agents. So just kind of one-off individuals that raced for the brand. It wasn't until 2021, right? Yeah, 2021 was the first year hit squad that Keegan got signed to Santa Cruz, and then I was just happened to be a Santa Cruz endurance athlete, so I was on the team, and then Alexis also was a Santa Cruz endurance athlete, so she was on the team, and all of a sudden there was the three of us, and it was called the Hit Squad, and we were a team, and we went to races together and stayed in houses, and it just that's kind of how it started, and obviously evolved a ton from there. And in Lifetime, in the Grand Prix didn't even exist that year. It was the next year that all happened. In that first year of our team, there wasn't a lot of racing to go to because COVID was still prevalent and the vaccine was kind of starting that year and stuff like that. So like, events weren't really back on, and people still didn't really know what the hell was going on in 2021, right? As far as COVID and social gatherings and whatnot. So we did as much racing as we could that year, but we did like a lot of FKT stuff, which is fastest known time for those that don't know. Um, and we did go to some races, I think, that year, like some stuff in Arkansas. We raced the U.S. Cup cross country races, but then that next year was the first year of the Lifetime Grand Prix, and that's when our team took like a hard turn towards like kind of a gravel team because gravel was so prevalent. But even that first year, we still did a lot of cross country racing, and it was still around, but it really just kind of snowballed into a gravel team.
It's interesting too, because the hit squad, well, especially with you and Keegan, um not a traditional road team by any means, where you have 4 or 5 solid riders, maybe one or two that can really punch the ticket for the podium. But
Yeah.
you and Keegan, both in your own right, could are a threat, even in the longer gravel courses too. So I imagine that was kind of an interesting dynamic duo, because if you decided to go ahead and punch out front a little early, you've got some riders back there that are going to have to make a decision, because they know if they've raced with you before, it's like, hey, Tobin, if he holds this, he can win it. Or we know that Keegan's right behind us right now. So what's going to happen here? That had to be kind of a
Yeah.
fun little dynamic for you guys.
Man, it was always fun. Like racing as teammates and working as a team. And the nice thing is about kind of our dynamic was that on any given day, Keegan was always stronger than me, no matter what. Um, which was really good in a lot of ways because there was never a doubt in like kind of the ability or pecking order, if you will. Like imagine if you had a team with two very equal racers, you might get two people are like, well, I'm not helping you. Like I want to win, and vice versa. But with Keegan, it was like I'm going to do my thing and I'm going to see how I'm feeling and see if I can be a little conservative. But like, if I'm not feeling it or I know I just can't do it, like I will sell out to make sure you get the win or the course record or whatever it is that, he needs. And I really liked kind of playing the domestique role on the team. Um, yeah, it was always fun.
It was, I mean, we followed you guys obviously, on social media and the races. And, and even in like one of the Shawanagon, when you guys were, when Key, I mean, it was a full on sprint. I mean,
Oh
they had to
yeah.
go to beyond the hundredths of a second, for Keegan on that one. And you were you can see you right there. It's like a perfect picture finish line. It's Keegan. I can see, I think
Yeah.
you're almost smiling. I think you're probably smiling because at that point, you're like, man, I think Keegan got it. And I know that's totally different, super fast 40 miles. But yeah, it was definitely, it was fun watching the dynamic, and then hear, Pink Bike and all the sports, cycling magazines online and otherwise talk about the dynamic, and of course podcasts, and they would talk to other riders, and they're like, oh yeah, I took a risk, and I kept following Keegan, and he never lit it up. And all of a sudden, so I had no chance. Tobin's out there, I'm never going to catch him. And it was just cool
Yeah.
hearing things like that, and vice versa.
That was a good race. That was one of our best team races ever, I'd say. Like just yeah, just the way it played out and the tactics and this and that and that. Yeah, I'll always remember that one. I mean, damn, dude, he almost did not win that sprint though. Like I'm in the background with my hand up, smiling because I just assumed Keegan won, but it was about a half a wheel. It was not like he mopped the guys in the sprint. He almost didn't win. So yeah, it would have
Yeah,
been
and
the
they were
picture would have had a
moving.
whole
And
different meaning. Yeah.
I mean, it was. I mean, what was yeah, there was averaging 20 miles an hour. I mean, I know that's a
Yeah,
fast race, but still, 40 miles, 2 hours, and averaging 20 miles an hour on a mountain bike.
it is a fast race. It's kind of a silly race because it's on like a lot of grass trail, but it's just different. It's a different kind of race, different tactics, different
Yeah,
speed. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Well, that brings me to the next question and topic, and I don't know if this one is a little painful or not, but late last year, the news kind of started breaking, rumor mills happen. And of course, by New Year's, we had heard that the hit squat was, at least two components of it was moving on, and Keegan and Alexis, had been lured away from Santa Cruz. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but me, I'm a little biased to my good
Yeah,
friends
yeah.
at Santa Cruz Bikes. But how did that affect you right off the bat? I mean, it was because, obviously, everything we just talked about, solid team. And like I said, racing is still a small business if you're a professional, and you always have to expand your business. But for you personally, what did that mean to you when Keegan and Alexis left Santa Cruz?
Obviously, in a lot of ways, I was bummed. So I mean, the real bit is like Santa Cruz was not super trying to continue that team in like just their investment into gravel. Like we kind of talked about, Santa Cruz is never like an endurance focused brand, and
Sure.
somehow with the hit squad and this and that, all of a sudden we were just like all in on gravel, like just heavy endurance brand. Not endurance brand, just a heavy endurance team supported by Santa Cruz. And that's why the team was so cool, right? Because it wasn't specialized. It wasn't Trek. It wasn't one of these teams that just comes in with all this money, makes a team and starts winning. The most winningest team was the Santa Cruz team, which was primarily known as a gravity, like more of a downhill oriented company. They were never kind of like paying a bunch of money to have a big endurance team. So that's why the team was so cool. And kind of at the end of the day, I think Santa Cruz was a little bit ready to like start doing some other things, like some get back to some other types of racing, which personally I was ready to do. I'm like, I don't need to continue going to these gravel races that we've been doing for 4 or 5 years now. Like I'm ready to do some new stuff. Keegan is a star and he wins these big races and he makes a lot of money doing that. So I understand his wanting to continue that. So that was kind of like the baseline of like, it was time for the team to, it was time for people to just kind of start doing some other stuff. So that was why the team kind of broke up, or I shouldn't even say broke up. It just didn't continue, right? Like Keegan went to Specialized, Alexis went to Scott. Ruth and I stuck around with Santa Cruz because I think she and I were ready to do some other types of racing, kind of get back to some more cross country racing, get back to maybe some enduro stuff, a little bit of gravel, kind of get back to like doing a bit of everything. And yeah, I mean, obviously not being on the team traveling and just being around everyone is the most sad part. I shouldn't say sad, but that's what I miss the most, right? Is like we would travel all over the place. We'd have an Airbnb. We'd all be there together. We'd pre-read together. We just would just be a family for the week, right? All the meals our mechanic would cook. We would just have a good time racing, hanging out, chilling, whatever it was. So I miss that the most. I do not necessarily miss the races that we would go to the most. Like I don't particularly need to go back to like some of these races in, the Midwest and stuff. Just I've done them. I'm ready to like do some new stuff. I'd like to ride mountain bikes a bit more. Um, I talk a lot of shit about gravel. I do like gravel racing, but I'm happy to have the opportunity to do some new types of racing. And that's kind of how I guess that's how I feel about it all. Like I'm sad we don't get to have that family dynamic of the hit squad, but I love the new opportunities of being able to go do like just some other cool bike racing, because there's so much good bike racing out there that just kind of it falls by the wayside to the Lifetime Grand Prix and all this hype. But it's like there's a lot of races that were around before that, and hopefully they're around after that too, that just don't get the kind of limelight and appreciation they deserve, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I totally agree too. And there's still the enjoyment aspect of it. And even though you're a professional racer, your very DNA is a cyclist, and you love riding. And
Yeah.
if you let that spark go away, then you will just end up with one of those jobs where people, it's like, oh, damn it, here it is Monday morning again. I got to go to work.
Yeah, and it felt like that here and there towards the end of it. I'm like, I was less excited to jump on a plane and go to some of these places and do some of these races. And I don't know, that's not a good place to be.
Well, and like you said too, and I mean, obviously, the Downeyville Classic is a very different animal, um, from even back to 1995, the Coyote Classic to where we are now. This year will be our 28th running of the Downeyville Classic, and of course, an entire stewardship, was born from those trails and from the race. And it's a unique race, but it's not part of any big series. It would be hard to make it part of a series because
Yeah,
it's a point to point 27 miles cross country. The downhill isn't I mean, it's 15 miles of downhill. It's not your regular, I'm doing a 3.5 to a 7 minute run. I'm doing 35, 36, 38 minute run. So
totally.
on a bike that also has to be ridden on a cross country course, but even lost and found, definitely not part of a big series. This will be our second year at the Gravel Earth Series, and some of that had some interest to us just to potentially bring in some new and different riders that were maybe feeling the same way about the lifetime Grand Prix. And obviously if you're not in the top level and that you're not in the money, you have to make some tough decisions, if you don't have a shot, at those big dollar signs. And there are a lot of races. I mean, there's a lot of cool races just from Nevada, Arizona, Northern California, Southern California, that just have a really cool vibe, a cool festival. And if you're in a series where you have to guarantee X out of so many races, it's really hard to go have fun at those. And for us at the stewardship, we've always appreciated you coming out. I mean, even, we got Keegan and Sophia at the Downeyville Classic, the one year when Leadville was on fire. And, but, in all honesty, we have folks like you and then a lot of the giant riders from, Carl Decker and Adam Craig, Stephen Davos, when he was still racing, and just a lot of great riders over the years that have come to our events. And I think other riders really appreciate that. But I don't know. It just seems like to me that, and I'm not a pro, so I'm obviously biased to our events and festivals like that. But, this is a good segue. And what I wanted to talk to you about next is, even as a pro rider, an elite rider, or for those friends of yours that are maybe still, just in the expert category, by all means, still awesome riders. They just never had a desire to be, quote, a pro. Um, what do you think the trend is now for a lot of these riders if they're not jumping on the big series?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, it just seems like the big series is like just consumed everything. Like there are very few professionals, right? I mean, I'm using the word professional because you're really only a pro if you're like kind of just doing it for a living. You know what I mean? And there are very few pros making a living racing like outside of the kind of gravel series, right? Like
Sure.
either you're a World Cup cross country athlete or you're like a world tour road racer, as in like, you're an American, but you race mostly in Europe, or you're kind of a gravel guy. And it kind of bums me out because it just didn't used to be that way. Like when I was younger, and I might just sound like, like I'm just missed the good old days and I'm showing that I've been around for a little bit now, but there used to be like professional cross country racers, professional road racers, professional cyclocross racers, and all these different professional downhill racers, and all these different pros and different disciplines were making a living. And it was just like a big, vibrant cycling vibe in the US, not even vibe, just professional racing. And I feel like, nowadays, if you want to be a professional and make a living racing your bike, it's really, really hard to do that without being a gravel racer, or, you got to just be a damn good cross country racer and make it to the World Cup level. Cause otherwise, you're probably not making a living racing domestic cross country anymore, which didn't used to be the case. Like it's just, the landscape has changed so much.
Yeah, I agree. And or you have to augment your quote professional career with literally working for one of your sponsors. Like you actually have a day job for one of your sponsors, whether it's bike or a component or otherwise. And I mean, of course, there's we know dozens and scores of those type of pro riders, that exist out there. But for us on the sponsorship level, and granted the pandemic and I mean the whole roller coaster of the cycling industry, notwithstanding. But just last year, this year, we've even seen the sponsorship levels, really, really struggle. We still have a lot of great sponsors, a lot of great supporters, whether it's cash or in kind, and of course, as a stewardship nonprofit, we're fortunate because we get to check some other boxes, not just trying to net profit because that's our business. We support communities and, we have the staff obviously at the stewardship, but we do greatly appreciate net profit because it goes right back into the trails, and for much of what we do. But yeah, we've really seen a lot of our heavier, even global sponsors that still support us, but their resources get spent on series like Lifetime, or they do have a competitive rider or a winner of the Tour de France. And I mean, how can you not put more money behind that? Because on the road, I mean, that's the grandfather. You're not going to get any better media coverage than that one. And that's, when you're talking about marketing bean counters and budget hearings, I think a lot of festivals and smaller races, like ours, get lost. Yeah, yeah, but even though post pandemic, when a lot of gravel races west of the Rockies were down 5, 10, 15%, some of them even 30%, we continued to gain. We've since 2022, our first when we brought back the Lost and Found, we gained every single year, and this year's I'm hoping so this year. So definitely. Tell your friends and, I mean, well, Tobin, you can talk about it. I mean, but, Lost and Found, I mean, it's fun, for those, if they're considering it, from a pro rider, but for someone that also just goes out and loves riding. Yeah, maybe help some of those folks to decide to come join us next month.
Yeah, I mean, damn, Lost and Found is such a good event because it's just spectacular. I mean, even if you're racing it as a competitive, or you're just out there riding it with support, like it's so pretty. It's just it's pretty. The course is fun. You got some hard climbs, you got fun descents, and you're just you're out in the Sierra. Like it doesn't get much better than that versus like some of these gravel races I go to, I'm like, oh my God, it's the same view of a cornfield. And then you take a left turn, it's the same view. And then you go 40 miles to the west and it's the same view. It's like, you know, or you see like like a mountain, snow runoff lake. You see an old mine. You see a fire lookout tower. It's just it's hard to beat it's hard to beat the course of Lost and Found. From like, it's fun to ride, it's beautiful, the vibe is rad, it's a tiny little town, everyone is kind of all there camping. I don't know, I mean, it starts to sound all so cheesy, right? Like the whole community vibe, but it's like everyone's there doing the thing, it's a good time. There's a band, there's food. It's just hard to beat. I mean, it's in a lot of ways it's no different than any other bike festival, but you really don't know that it's special till you've gone and done it. I guess, right? Like everything I've described is not necessarily unique,
Sure.
but it's a unique event. It's just you can't replicate the people and like the energy at Lost and Found. The course stands out to me no matter what. When I talk about it, it's easy to like sell people on like the tangible things of the beauty, the ruggedness, the fun of the riding. But like I just said, like when I'm talking about the event, it is not unique from any other event, but it totally is, and you just have to experience it.
Yeah, and there are some out there. I mean, obviously, we talked about the Donnyville Classic already, and I mean, you're well versed at the Classic. Especially the format from a cross country to a downhill. If you're in the all mountain, or you can just do the cross country. But very different terrain. Obviously, the trails used to be old mining trails, and then of course the ones we've built and added on, for fun and to make the downhill even longer. It's even though it's only a 30-minute drive, from the lost and found area, a very different course, obviously on mountain bikes, but for you this year, heading up to Oregon, going to give the Oregon Trail a try, and there again a much different. It's 5 days of racing, and we change locations, every night, except for one location where we spend 2 nights in one location. And I say we, folks, because I actually announced that one up there for the Oregon Trail as well.
Yeah, I forgot about that for a
Yeah,
sec. I was
yeah,
like, why is he saying we?
yeah.
Yeah.
But a much different, varied terrain there, and it's just different. It's cool. Again, the festival stuff, food. There's always entertainment going on, cool things, and camaraderie. But it just feels different. I think the location sometimes, and of course whoever puts the race on, and up there it's Breakaway Promotions, and of course they're our race logistics partner down here in Northern California. So obviously we're partial to them too, because they do a great job for us. But I mean, for folks like you, I mean, is this something that can still be in the future with sponsorship, or do you think that we're going to continue to put the sponsorship into a funnel just down to these large few events, or do you think maybe it could possibly start going the other way?
I think we will see it start going the other way potentially. Like, I feel like, I don't know, obviously I'm partial again to like Santa Cruz, but Santa Cruz has been ahead of the curve more than once on these things. And I think, a slight step back from the heavy investment in like the lifetime gravel vibe. I don't think that, I don't necessarily think that that'll be a unique thing in the future. I don't think lifetime's going anywhere, but I do think that there are a lot of athletes, at least that I've talked to, that kind of that wish they could do some other events. You know what I mean? Kind of get back to some different style events. Like me wanting to do some other stuff. I don't think I'm in a unique I don't think my feelings are unique, but the difference is I have a sponsor that is willing to try some other stuff. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think that some of these events, like if they can just make it through, like, sometimes the attendance is a little low, but if some of these events can just stick around, I think people are going to want to start doing some different stuff. Like, Sophia Gomez, big premier gravel athlete, like she did Oregon Trail last year. It's not really a race I would expect to see her at, but she was there and she won. And I don't know, I think people will kind of look at that and be like, oh, Sophia went, maybe I should give that race a go. So I don't know. I really hope that we will see these races start to thrive and be just bigger, right? And then if we look at like what, marketing and quote storytelling happens at events from a marketing standpoint, everyone's on Instagram marketing, and the eye roll storytelling, right? What is the story we're telling here, guys? It's the 5th year of this whole thing. We've done it 5 times. What story can you possibly tell that hasn't been told yet? You know what I mean? So if we are looking at it from a marketing standpoint, I mean, I think a lot of companies could really benefit from like doing some new stuff, right? And quote storytelling at some new events, and just flipping up the marketing a little bit, like trying something new. I'm no marketing genius or anything, but I find a lot of what I see on social media around these big events is just a little boring, and I might be way too close to it all, right? And I've done it for too long. But I think it's like year after year we see it's kind of the same narratives every week. It's the same social media posts. It's the same bike check. It's the same, novel of an Instagram post Saturday evening after the race about how the effort doesn't reflect the result. And I don't know, I think we could all use some freshness in the social media feed and in our kind of racing, you know?
I agree. I think you're onto something. And
Preaching to the choir. I'm preaching to
yeah,
the choir here,
yeah,
but
and and then unfortunately too, there's like Traka, coming out, and there's some negative stories have come out on that about people on the course while using their phone to record, and um you know and again, negativity will always get the first drama stars when it comes to media, because
always.
it's
It's
it's the bait and
unfortunate.
switch. So yeah, it's the most impactful headline. And Truck is another one that's, I mean, that's a huge race. And and same with Oregon Trail. And I mean, and our races are a heavy lift for us, and you never want negativity, but yeah, always trying to find that um way to reach out to folks to say, hey, just come join us, because you're just gonna have a good time. Just come have fun. And we want you to do it once, and even if you never come back to our event again, please come back to the area, because that's what we really want. We want you to come race with us, of course, but we want you to come ride our trails and visit our communities, and see this spectacular area, and go up to Oregon and do it, and go over to Nevada and Utah, and do that too. um and I think there's some hope here locally. Our local composite mountain bike team, junior high and high school kids, aged, on a good year, they've had between 30 and 40 team members, which is good, especially in a rural community where you're separated by mountain passes and lakes, and vast swaths of national forest, to put those teammates together. This year they have 63 on the team, 63 youngins on this team, which to me, I'm like, finally, that number is going up, which in
Yeah.
my opinion is good. And we're seeing more young riders, and especially more female riders. And you know, we anytime we see the ladies really step up and come to our races and get more involved, it makes us excited too. It lets us know that we're doing something right. But I agree. I think that the old adage of marketing, storytelling, and hitting the metrics, and I think that message coming from us doesn't resonate as much as when it's someone like you and the other pros, and then all of a sudden you've got expert riders, and even more importantly, if you've got beginner classes, and those beginners get on, and they don't have
Yeah.
100,000 people on Instagram, but they do have a lot of friends. And a lot of times friends do
Totally.
things together. And if the beginner came out like last year on Mount Huff, did their first ever mountain bike enduro with just 2 stages, and had a blast, they're like, hey, I can do this enduro thing. This isn't one of the gnarly ones that we know, which are fun to watch. um, but yeah, we're certainly hoping that that's the trend. And we appreciate you and your fellow pro riders, those that come out and join us, that have always supported us, Tobin, because I mean, we always joke with the moniker. It's not really a joke. I mean, it means something. We call you the people's champion. I don't know if you really like that or not, but
I
um,
like it. Yeah, I'll
yeah,
take it.
yeah. But you know what though? But I think that's a great way to um, to show folks of what a true pro cyclist really is, because you're really just like the rest of us. It's your job, but you love riding bikes, and that's the whole point. So,
Totally. And I mean, going back to like what you said about, you put on like the Huff Enduro or whatever, it might not be the biggest race around or whatever, the gnarliest course, but I have like such a fresh perspective after I started racing dirt bikes a bit in November. I've done, I don't know, 5 races. I forget how I started. It's been so long since I've started at the bottom of a thing, like I am new to it. I race the seas. I don't know what the hell's going on at the first few races. I'm just doing it because I want to do it. But when I was, I'm around biking forever, that I don't even remember what it was like to be new and not know what's going on. And I'm grateful that locally there is a series that has some like smaller races to get your feet wet, and get into it, realize like, yeah, this is something I like doing. I will do some more regional, local ones. Maybe I'll go to a little bigger one. And that's kind of the same with bikes, right? Like you don't just go to the big race and just send it. Like ideally you've got something to get your feet wet, and see if you like it. A less intimidating way to get into it.
yeah, I agree fully. What's next for you? obviously still riding for Team Santa Cruz, but for
Yep.
this season, what's on deck for you this season?
So not next week, this week on Wednesday, I leave to go do BC Bike Race, which is a big one that I'm sure most people have heard of if they're in the sport. It's a 7-day cross country stage race on Victoria Island in British Columbia. So I'm pretty excited to do that.
There's another one of those epic locations that's just so different. It's just rad. It's just
I've
cool.
never been, yeah, but I expect it to be just phenomenal, right? Um, do that, and then I told you before we started recording, I am missing Lost and Found
I
for a
know.
wedding in Spain
Boo.
this year,
Boo.
which is a real bummer for multiple reasons. But especially because the course at Lost and Found looks phenomenal this year. Like it looks better than ever. But we won't get off in the weeds talking about the course. And then
And
trying
we're
to
gonna
think.
make sure some of your buddies too that will be there are gonna rub it in to you. Just so you know.
I know I'm just gonna have FOMO from afar. And then I get to do Oregon Trail this year, which we were just talking about being the gravel stage race. So I'm also really excited to do that. It's a race I've never done before. I'm just really excited this year to do some new stuff because we're not chasing kind of the series we've been chasing. Then after that, a few weeks after, we have Downeyville. And then I'm trying to think, what else are we doing? Those are kind of the big summer races, though. We got the 2 stage races in Downeyville are the big ones. Then there's some smaller stuff that I have to look on the calendar for, but those are kind of the big headline events of the year.
Yeah, and
Or the
I mean,
summer.
we always love having you in Downeyville, and this year Santa Cruz too, big conglomerate. It's probably going to be one of the largest group of Santa Cruz folks in Downeyville,
Yeah,
just because they're bringing up some of the factory staff, which is so cool. So it's going to be. I'm really looking forward to it, and
yeah,
I mean, it's Downeyville is synonymous with Santa Cruz and vice versa. I mean, many of those frames that have names on them right now were colorless and had no name but cut their teeth, on the trails of Downeyville. So
totally. Yeah.
well, cool, man. Well, that's it's going to be exciting. It'll be good to see you in Downeyville, and we'll for sure miss you at Lost and Found. Greg and his boy will be up at Oregon Trail, so maybe Miles can ride with you for a little bit
Perfect.
before
See, I won't I
before
won't
it gets
miss him
real
at every
serious.
gravel race then this year.
But Tobin, I mean, thanks for joining us. The People's Champ. We've always really appreciated your support, and I mean, you come out and ride like everybody else ride, and your honesty's always been right there with us. It's like, hey, Tobin, what can we do? What can we do to make this better? What's going to make it more fun? And we know that coming from you, it's not just coming from a professional racer. It's someone that just truly loves being out on 2 wheels, and that certainly helps us. So first and foremost, thank you for always supporting us on that. We
100%.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm serious. I think we got to do a cross race at Mountains to Meadows or Lost and Found, but not this year because I won't be there.
Yeah. We need a little more planning on that, and we did, that with we talked about it when the pandemic hit, and we were talking about this Mountains to Meadows festival that we were going to do. And, we were going to try to get Paul Components involved because, Paul, we got, California Travis over there to help. And we've got that entire fairground space, which includes a dirt racetrack, infields, livestock barn areas. We could have a
Dude,
little bit of fun. So it's not even our Kyle, our race
100%.
director now, when he listens to this episode, he's going to come in and shake his finger at me. And it's like, Marty, what the
No,
hell? What are you trying to do? You trying to
it's
kill me?
exactly what you need. I'll tell you, a lot of great cross races happen at fairgrounds. It's just a great place to do a cross race or a fat tire crit, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be difficult.
Oh yeah. We'll definitely make it our own. And part of it'll be Tobin Presents. There you go. A race by the People's Champ.
I'm here for it. 100%.
We'll have that. Well, instead of a medal, it's going to be the trophy. It'll be some weird trophy that good old Terrence, one of our guys that does a lot of steel work for us, is a master artist, and we'll have to call it the McTubbin. That'll be what it is, the
Perfect.
McTubbin Award.
I'm here for it.
All right. Hey, I'm gonna let you go, buddy. And Tobin, thanks again for being on the show. Really appreciate it. And have a great season. And I will see you at Oregon Trail and in Downeyville.
Sounds like a plan, Marty. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Dirt Magic, the podcast, brought to you by the good people of the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship. For future and past shows, visit dirtmagicpodcast.com or search for us on your favorite listening platform. Music by The Saddle Tramps. To learn more about supporting the SBTS and upcoming events, visit sierratrails.org. I'm Martin Scheel, and I'll see you out on the trails. Thanks again for listening.